I'm Chris Farrell, and this is On Watch. Let's talk about the so-called hack of the presidential election by the Russians. Despite innuendo, hand-wringing, hysterical supposition, and various forms of yellow journalism, Mr. Trump won the election, and that has been certified by both the Electoral College and the United States Congress. He will become the 45th President of the United States on January 20th. There are claims that the Russian government attempted to influence the election. Yeah, what's new? When haven't the Russians or Soviets attempted to influence the outcome of an election? They've been doing it consistently since 1917. The Russians even have a name for these strategic efforts. They call them an active measures campaign, parts of which include influence operations, disinformation, deception, and strategic communications. What's particularly interesting is the reaction from the losing side of this election. The ideological left is now screaming about Russian influence. The irony is rich indeed. These are the same people that invented the term McCarthyism and would have smeared everyone in sight with terms like red baiting and fearmonger had the shoe been on the other foot. Mark your calendars. The American left has discovered the threat from Russia. And in a form of Alinsky jiu-jitsu, they seek to pin the blame on the person that they were confident was absolutely unelectable. I am waiting to hear the claim now that Putin somehow tricked Mrs. Clinton into not campaigning in Michigan and Wisconsin. As the American left attempt to marginalize and delegitimize the Trump victory with deliberately vague claims of election hacking, they simultaneously develop amnesia over Hillary Clinton's national security crimes and reckless use of an unsecured outlaw server to conduct all of her business as Secretary of State. Mrs. Clinton sent 22 top-secret, sensitive compartment and information emails across her outlaw server. Even Mr. Comey's phonied-up FBI investigation of Mrs. Clinton's national security crimes concluded that it was highly likely that all of the information on Mrs. Clinton's outlaw server was compromised to hostile foreign actors. Where's the damage assessment concerning Mrs. Clinton's email server? The law requires one. DNI James Clapper has refused to conduct one. That's interesting, isn't it? Look, the Russians have been trying to influence U.S. elections since 1917. Sometimes they even had help. Walter Duranty of the New York Times won the Pulitzer Prize in 1932 for deliberately lying about Stalin and the brutal dictator's manufactured famine in the Ukraine. The United States would not even formally recognize the USSR until 1933, when FDR agreed to do so in exchange for the Soviets stopping their efforts to foment revolution and radicalizing American unions in the midst of the Great Depression. The Soviets got what they wanted, and the Soviet ambassador literally laughed at FDR. 50 years later, there's another great example. In May 1983, Senator Ted Kennedy wrote to the Soviet leadership and offered assistance in undermining President Reagan with the 1984 election in mind. Kennedy told the Soviets he was eager to, quote, counter the militaristic policies of Reagan. Kennedy suggested that he could work with American news media to help organize favorable American press coverage for Soviet General Secretary Andropov and other Soviet officials. That's outrageous conduct from a sitting United States senator. One might even call it treasonous. Let's not fall for fake news, political opposition research dossiers, and the frantic speculation of political operatives who see their meal ticket disappearing before their eyes. It will require discernment and accurate information. Rely on Judicial Watch to get you the facts. This is Chris Farrell, and I'm on watch.